Europe's dance with death did not begin with a single scream or a single war, but with a slow, almost elegant step taken in the shadows of time, where ambition whispered louder than conscience and crowns were weighed against human lives. For centuries the continent moved to a rhythm composed of steel, faith, hunger, and fear, and every generation believed it would be the last to hear the music, yet the melody always returned, deeper, darker, and more relentless than before. From the fall of the Roman Empire, when roads once built for unity became pathways for invasion, to the silent collapse of order that left cities exposed and people praying not for prosperity but survival, Europe learned early that death was not an enemy to be defeated, but a partner to be negotiated with, sometimes embraced, sometimes resisted, but never ignored. As the Middle Ages unfolded beneath a sky filled with omens and unanswered prayers, famine swept across lands already weakened by war, and when the Black Death arrived in the 14th century it did not knock, it simply entered, riding on fleas and fear, killing peasants and kings alike, erasing entire villages in weeks, and teaching Europe a brutal lesson that power offered no immunity. Churches filled with the dying while bells rang endlessly, mass graves replaced cemeteries, and art itself became obsessed with mortality. Skeletons danced with the living in murals and manuscripts, a reminder that death was no longer hidden but ever present, watching, waiting. As the continent staggered forward into an age of religious certainty, that soon fractured into religious war, when faith turned into a weapon and neighbors became enemies over interpretations of God. The 30 Years' War reduced Central Europe to ashes. Armies marched not to conquer but to consume, stripping land bare, leaving starvation in their wake, and civilians suffered more than soldiers. Learning that neutrality was a myth in a world where survival depended on submission, while rulers justified cruelty as divine will. And Europe continued its dance, faster now, bloodier, spinning into the age of empires where ships crossed oceans carrying not only goods but death itself, exported and imported through conquest, colonialism, and exploitation, as wealth flowed into European capitals built on suffering far beyond their borders, creating cities of marble and gold while millions elsewhere paid the price. Yet even within Europe the cost was paid again, and again as revolutions erupted, first in ideas and then in streets. The French Revolution promised liberty but delivered terror, the guillotine becoming both symbol and instrument, heads falling in the name of equality, showing once more how easily ideals could become executioners. And as Napoleon marched across the continent, redrawing borders with cannon fire, Europe learned that even genius carried a body count. As wars became industrialized, organized, efficient, and disturbingly rational, leading directly into the 19th century, where progress marched hand in hand with destruction. Factories rose, railways spread, and weapons evolved, allowing death to be delivered faster, farther, and with terrifying precision. Nationalism took root, convincing people that identity was worth dying for and killing for, setting the stage for the catastrophe of the 20th century, when Europe would waltz straight into the abyss of World War I, a war born from alliances, pride, and miscalculation, where millions marched believing in glory and returned in coffins or not at all, trenches filled with mud, gas, and despair, young men drowning in filth while generals spoke of honor, a war that ended not with peace but with resentment, humiliation, and unresolved rage, feeding the rise of ideologies that promised restoration and revenge. And when Europe danced again it did so with unprecedented violence during World War II, a conflict that transformed death into a system, where factories of extermination operated with bureaucratic efficiency, the Holocaust standing as the darkest proof of what happens when dehumanization becomes policy. 6 million Jews murdered alongside millions of others, while cities burned under aerial bombardment, civilians targeted deliberately. Dresden, London, Hamburg, Warsaw reduced to rubble, and when the war finally ended, Europe stood surrounded by graves and ruins, divided physically and ideologically, the Cold War freezing the continent in a tense embrace where annihilation was only a button away. Nuclear weapons turned death into an abstract possibility, invisible yet absolute, and though Europe avoided direct nuclear war, it remained haunted by the knowledge that destruction could arrive in minutes, as proxy wars, repression, and walls divided families and futures. And even when the Cold War ended and hope briefly flourished, death did not leave the dance floor, it merely changed partners, appearing in ethnic conflicts in the Balkans, where neighbors once again turned on neighbors, reminding the world that ancient hatreds never truly vanished. And in the modern era Europe faces new forms of mortality, quieter yet no less devastating, terrorism striking at everyday life, economic crises eroding dignity, pandemics exposing fragility, and climate change threatening the stability upon which we depend. does Europe survive? Not because it has mastered death, but because it has learned to live while dancing with it, carrying the memory of every step, every fall, every scream etched into its collective consciousness. And perhaps the greatest lesson of Europe's long dance with death is not found in its wars or tragedies, but in its refusal to stop moving forward, to keep rebuilding, remembering, and questioning, knowing that the music may never fully stop, but believing that understanding the rhythm is the first step toward changing it.